Good people? What is going on? Another episode of the All Go podcast. I am your host, Desmond. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Want to talk about the disaster of a franchise that is known by the Detroit Lions. The Lions yesterday announced that Aubrey Pleasant has been terminated, relieved of his duties. If you don't know who he is, that's part of the reason I'm making this video, because he's the defensive backs coach. And in the NFL, sometimes guys have dual roles, right? I coach the defensive backs and I'm also the defensive coordinator. Pleasant was not that. He was solely the defensive backs coach. That was his only goal, only role. And the Detroit Lions let him go yesterday. Didn't make any other moves yesterday. Just him. And what it says to me is the Lions were looking for a scapegoat. Shout out to Derek at the Detroit Lions Syndicate. If you don't know that channel, definitely subscribe. They do a great job. Post videos every day about all Detroit Lions. But one of the opening things that he mentioned was exactly that they picked a scapegoat, and it was Pleasant. And I've got plenty of issues with this. Let's go with the first issue. This move says that we would have a really good defense if our defensive backs were coached up better. And if you've watched the Detroit Lions defense, really for any stretch at all, you would know that is absolutely not the case. Also, Pleasant doesn't call any plays. He is not the defensive play caller. He has no control over what scheme the Lions run, the plays that were called, the blitzes, all of those things are not his responsibility. Not at all. Additionally, he was with that. So in general, defensive backs in a normal defense, 4-3, 3-4, whatever the case may be, you have 4 defensive backs, 2 corners and 2 safeties. So let's just use those numbers, right? Tracy Walker was injured, I believe, the first game of the season, maybe the second game of the season. Tracy Walker is our starting safety. He is one of the better players on our defense. So we have gone without. No, let me rephrase that. Pleasant has been without 25% of his starting backfield for a majority of the season, and he's the guy that we terminate. It's just, I'm trying to hold out hope for Dan Campbell, but this is such a pat the fans on the head, kind of good job. See, we did something. We made a change, right? We're not okay with things being the way that they are, so we're going to do something about it. If you wanted to do something about it, you should have terminated the guy who decides who makes the calls on defense, because you can't point to a single game. Maybe the who the heck did we play last week where we held them to the Dallas Cowboys? Maybe the Cowboys game you could look at and say we did a good job on defense. Other than that, it's been abysmal. Absolutely abysmal. And it's doing something just to do something. Tell me what reports that you heard from Burkett or any of the Lions beat writers that said, man, really been hearing that Pleasant is the problem on this coaching staff, that he's the problem with this team. He just can't seem to get on board with what's going on and so on and so forth. You haven't heard it because it's not the truth. It is, as I mentioned, to me, I think Dan Campbell is slowly but surely making decisions to get himself terminated. Really unfortunate, but My thought is if somebody was going to get terminated, that it should be Aaron Glenn. Because even if you do think our defensive backs are bad, and I would argue that overall, yes, they have been. I'm not going to argue with you on that. But they're all NFL defensive backs, and we don't do a good job of putting them in positions to succeed. Continuously running bomb blitzes, running cover zero. We played Miami today's Tuesday, a couple days ago. Anyway, Sunday, right? And if you watch the game, you remember seeing the pass that Tua threw to Jalen Waddle for the touchdown. Beautiful throw, beautiful catch. There was no safety over the top. If he wasn't doing his job. But there is nothing you can coach a defender to make him faster. Nothing you were going to say to, I don't even know who was covering him. Let's say it was me. Nothing you're going to say is going to make Desmond be able to run fast enough to run with Jalen Waddle. That's just a bad scheme against a team that has two of the fastest receivers in the NFL. I think I'm close to my wit's end with Dan Campbell. We're just a clown show, man. It's just consistently every week. You know, you go from being super aggressive on fourth downs to super conservative, and it's just swinging back and forth all the time. And I'm just about done with him because we're like he's like 5-20 or something like that. I mean, something just ridiculous and awful. And you just are what your record says. At some point, you are what the record says. It doesn't matter that we have had some close losses, lost by 3 to the Vikings, lost by 4 to the Dolphins. That doesn't matter. This isn't the BCS. We're not fighting for playoff points. It's wins and losses. So we'll see what happens. I'm not quite sure. I'm very annoyed, but we'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I appreciate it.